Okay, perfect. Okay. So as I mentioned, we'll do just a little bit of intros. We'll actually talk about Mamluk Academy, which is the academy or school of archery that hosted the Mamluk Games. Again, we'll talk about the training and what we did in order to prep for the competition, and then the champions, and we'll have carve out some time for Q&A. So, intros. Who am I and who is Dieter? My name's Kristie Bocanegra. I'm co-founder of Texas Asiatic Archery. I primarily shoot Mamluk techniques or Mamluk School of Archery, which is a specific historical way of shooting an Asiatic bow. I have been shooting since about 2021. So it was after the pandemic when everybody and both of us have been just cooped up inside. We were kind of looking for something to do outside, and we stumbled across archery. The main bow that I shoot is a Turkish short bow, a Grozer Turkish short, at 35 pounds.
Hello, I am Dieter Galvan. I am also a co-founder of Texas Asiatic Archery. As Kristie mentioned, we both started at the start of January 2021. It was definitely a great way to get outside. And so I guess that would put us about 4 years in now.
Yeah.
I am also practicing under the school, Mamluk School of Archery. So I practice Mamluk techniques. And I also prefer, there's always a collection of bows, but I am primarily using a short Turkish bow as well from Grozer. So those have been, I think, our primary bows for the last couple of months.
All right. So some of you that I see on the call are TAA members. Hey, Alan. Some of you guys are TAA members. Some of you guys, this is your first time hearing about Texas Asiatic Archery. And what we are is we're an archery club located in Austin, Texas. We're a diverse and inclusive community practicing with Asiatic bows. So no matter what school of archery you follow, what type of Asiatic bow you shoot, whether it's Mediterranean or thumb draw, we welcome everybody to our community to learn, ask questions, and grow, not only as an archer, but as a person as well. For some of us, we do shoot competitively, either locally, regionally, nationally, and most recently for us, internationally. So we shoot in both traditional and non-traditional competitions, including horseback, indoor. Indoor is a style of archery, more of a modern style of archery, where you shoot at about 20 yards in an indoor range at a 40 centimeter target. And then there's also competitions that we compete in, like 3D archery, which is pretty much a course, 30 target course that you can do. They're always primarily outside, and you shoot at foam animal targets. And it's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to get outside and pretty much like hike in the woods with your bow. And then our mission for Texas Asiatic Archery is to provide education and resources about Asiatic archery in Texas, focused on community and practice. So our club, we got started last year in April of 2024. So we're just approaching a year that our club has been around, which is really exciting. And within that time, we've been able to do quite a bit, including hosting a couple of classes when we have some free time at local ranges around town. And so this picture that you see here is of a class that we had where we had, I think that day we had like 13 or 14 people come to our class, and they've got a 2-hour session of how to shoot, just a general overview of how to shoot an Asiatic bow, more specifically thumb draw. So.
Oh, looks like that's updating on that side.
We can see the mission statement still, but we can't see the Mamluk Academy that you guys see. Are you guys seeing the Mamluk Academy slide? Yeah, okay.
Okay. There we go. I think it was just delayed.
Oh, there we go. Okay. And I'll hand it to Dieter to talk about Mamluk Academy.
Yeah, so I guess to go hand in hand with the Mamluk Games, just for anyone that's not previously familiar with the Mamluk Academy is a Turkish archery academy that is Turkish Archery Academy that revives historical heritage rooted in the historical Mamluk culture, and it brings a fresh perspective to traditional archery in the evolving world. The Mamluk Academy was founded in 2017 by Alperen Khan, and it has now expanded with 5 international schools, including located in Turkey, United Kingdom, the United Arab Emirates, Indonesia, as well as Germany. So it's definitely grown quite a bit over the last few years, and we're excited to see continue its growth. And moving on. And what you may be wondering, what we're referring to as Mamluk School of Archery. So what they specialize in is Mamluk techniques. And so just to go as a brief overview, kind of what makes them distinctive from other styles of archery is there's a very specific three set of aspects of it that really distinguish it from other schools. So the main ones going down the list here just briefly is the bow grip. So the bow grip, you'll be holding, this is a great example, by the way. This is the lead instructor of the Mamluk Academy in Turkey. It's Barish. He's a great friend of ours now. And so you can basically kind of get a good picture as I describe these. So an important one here is the bow grip. It utilizes the index and thumb fingers in order to stabilize the arrow. Yeah, if you look closely, I may see that the arrow is actually resting on the thumb as well as the index finger, and the bow actually never touches the arrow. The next distinctive feature is the string grip. That is instead of pulling the bow in a Mediterranean style, it is being pulled with a thumb draw. It's a traditional method commonly used in the Eastern styles of archery. And then lastly here, we have the draw, which in order to draw the bow, the archer must use a leveled push and pull motion. So you're actually utilizing both of your arms equally in order to pull the bow to its full length. And then along with that, something that comes along that's great as a part of Mamluk Academy is that they offer a grading system for archers. And so this grading system is done through a system of insignias called tiraz. And in the Mamluk history, warriors were recognized by the tiraz they wore in their arms. Essentially what tiraz means is it's a armband. So as you guys can see in the illustration, this archer is wearing 2 armbands that distinguish him as a red tiraz specifically. And which, as I mentioned, they wore on their arms these tiraz bands which contain information about themselves and their units. So there are 4 distinct classes in the Mamluk grading system. Each class contains 5 different colored tiraz. And then with each tiraz reflects a student's dedication to Mamluk tradition, archery skills, as well as every student at the Mamluk Academy diligently works to earn their tiraz, carrying the pride of being part of the Mamluk tradition. And so essentially at each level of, like I mentioned, there's 5 different colored tirazes. So they're different levels within the classes. And you are essentially able to, learn a certain amount of information, and then you are tested on that information. So you're essentially building your experience and skill levels so that you can perfect your technique as you go through the system. So it's a really great way of being able to not only practice your archery, but also continue to grow and expand your skill level. And so that leads us next to what are the Mamluk Games? So the Mamluk Games are a 3-day event hosted by the Mamluk Academy. They are making history by bringing the past to life in a modern world. In this extraordinary competition, athletes combined their scores across 3 disciplines to revive the legendary abilities of a true Mamluk warrior. So competitors showcase their skills in horseback archery, target archery, and flight archery. And in order to participate in these games, you first must be a student within the Mamluk Academy, and then you are also required to have a tiraz grading. And with that, we can go into basically how we prepared in our training so that we can get ready so that we can compete in these games.
Yeah. So for the Mamluk Games, more specifically, what the competition was made up of was one 18-meter shoot, one 60-meter shoot, flight archery, where you had a bow weight limit of 50 pounds. So you could shoot with any bow as long as it met the 50-pound weight and didn't go over that. And then in horseback, there was the tabla 4 track, which we'll go into more detail about what tabla 4 track looks like. And then the kabak 6 track, and we'll also go later on, explain later on what that looked like. So for us, more specifically, we started off with training with ground archery first because that's definitely kind of more of our strength when it comes to archery. We are pretty new to horseback archery. We just started riding maybe like 6 months ago.
About 6 months
6 months ago with no previous, even no previous horse riding experience. So we knew we wanted to prioritize the ground archery and making sure that we're kind of set there. And then our approach to horseback archery was more of let's just kind of use it as a way to gain experience on what it means to be a horseback archer, to showcase your horsemanship, and then to just like really look at all the riders that we're around because we were around so many riders who are from either the UK, from Turkey, from Germany, and then I'm missing one more. There isn't there. It'll come to me, but it was just a way for people for us to just really like observe people who have been doing this for 10 years. And so for the 18, for more of the ground training that we did, we focused on we practice at local ranges here in Austin. With the 18 meter, it's a little easier for us to find ranges that can accommodate that distance. But when we think about 60 meters, we used Austin Archery Club as a practice space where we could get up to about 50 yards. And then we can kind of take a step back from that 50-yard kind of range just to kind of mimic that 60 meter, what that 60 meter felt like. But then, as you guys know, for some of you guys who might live in a city where kind of those longer distances might not be available, we practice at one of our friends' house, Titan Ranch. Tyler Aron and Kristen Aron, who own this facility that has a 90-meter track. So we practice horseback archery there. And so what we would do is we would do horseback archery for the day, and then after we were done, we would just use the track to try and shoot as far as we can because they have this space for us to do that. But if we didn't know about Kristen and Tyler's place, it would be pretty hard for us to practice some of those longer distances because we live in a city. So we're thankful that their place exists. And then for horseback archery, like I mentioned, because we're fairly beginner horseback archers, we just kind of focus on continuing our practice as we would normally, where we would practice with Claire, who is also based out of New Braunfels, and ride horses in order to just focus on practicing those riding techniques in an English saddle. And then after that, we would go to Titan Ranch, which is pretty much up the street from there, and then kind of put it all together and put riding and archery together for horseback archery. And so, yeah, that was kind of a little bit of our training plan. Yes, y'all's place is so much fun. I love that you guys are just an hour away. So anybody on the call that lives in Austin, they're just about an hour away from South Austin where we live. And so, yeah, this is pretty much our training program for horseback archery. We only have the opportunity to practice once a week because of schedules and because of distance. And then for ground archery, we were practicing anywhere from like 4 to 6 days, making sure we got those reps in and that we knew how to shoot at those, especially that 60-meter distance, which we really don't shoot at too much. And then Dieter made some awesome flight arrows, which is what we were kind of with flight archery, because it's such like pretty much for flight archery and the Mamluk Games, it's pretty much like whoever can go the furthest with their arrow wins the competition. So we knew we were only going to bring one bow each. I had my 35-pound Turkish short, which is a shorter bow is, good for getting that arrow to increase the feet per second. And so we were like, okay, we have 35-pound. He had a 38-pound bow. What can we use in order to, how can we like modify or not modify or build arrows in order to kind of get as far as we can? Because we didn't, the weight limit for the bows was 50 pounds and we knew other people were going to outshoot us. So we looked to arrows and see like, can we kind of build a flight arrow instead of using our regular arrows? And I'll let Dieter talk more
Yeah.
about this because he built these for us.
It was really about seeing how we can become competitive without having a 50-pound bow. And since we did want to use the same one, we weren't trying to bring, and it's also difficult to travel with bows. That was our first time.
Yeah.
So we didn't know, that we could bring lots of bows, and we didn't know if we would our luggage may get lost. So we were trying to really combine and consolidate our equipment. And so some of y'all know that I'm very much into history and all the historical methods of, both creating your equipment and then just techniques. So what I was looking up is really, these would be considered menzo. So basically menzo means range, so long distance shooting arrows. And historical references, these, especially in specifically for Turkish historical references, long distance arrows would be approximately anywhere from below 28 inches is the shortest. And the reason for that is to really, essentially what the goal is to make your arrow as light as possible. The historical references actually would have these that would essentially barrel. So they would barrel out to the tips and the ends would be thinner. However, we were able to use carbon arrows. So what I actually utilized was some Mamluk archery arrows that are the Sungur models. And so what I did is I cut those down to 28 inches. And then since I'm trying to get those as light as possible, I also utilized 55 grain tips, which you can see here in the image. They're quite small, but they allowed to get the total weight of these down to 300 grain. And from there, I also, went out and looked for the smallest feather fletchings that I could possibly find. In the historical references, they actually would be produced from like a really thin paper. They're almost like what you would see in compound arrows with a trad vein, with a vein, like a rubber vein on there. But back in those times, they would be, with paper, and they would help with stabilizing the arrow, but having as little weight as possible. And another thing y'all may notice is essentially different of these arrows is that the fletching is as far back as possible. That also is helping a lot for the long distance stabilization, because as you shoot farther and farther, that arrow will be, there's a lot more vibration that can come into that arrow. So having that fletching further back is really going to help that arrow stabilize and prevent it from essentially spaghettiing out, so you don't have, it doesn't fall shorter than what you'd like it to get. So these really helped us out. I really recommend to explore, checking these out. If you guys ever have an opportunity to practice flight archery, these are great to get started with. And taking those specs and then applying that to creating your own arrows, because creating your own arrows is definitely super fun. I recommend it.
And fun fact, we were the only ones out of everybody in the Mamluk Games that brought flight arrows. So we were thinking, do we need a pair to shoot? But yeah, Alperin and everybody at Mamluk Academy was really impressed with the arrows that Dieter built.
Yeah, that was an interesting fact. Everyone actually ended up using the regular arrows. So I think that gave us a little,
a little advantage for sure.
To be competitive with those heavier bows that came on the field.
Yeah. All right. And then we'll go into the competition of the Mamluk Games. You want to share about the participants?
Yeah, so essentially what you see here is all of the participants that were a part of the Mamluk Games. They are all Mamluk instructors. They're all essentially from those countries that we had mentioned. It's the UAE. There's UAE instructors. There's instructors from the UK. There's also, you can see Alperen and Barish there at the bottom. They're the Turkey team. And then we've also got Oslam, which you see on the left-hand side in the blue. She is from Germany instructor. So really wide range of archers, and being able to meet everyone and really understanding their perspective. And, they've been doing this. They've had clubs in their own distinctive regions for longer than we have. So really getting to meet them and talk to them about, what their experiences are and how they've managed their own clubs was really great to just be able to get to meet them and hear their perspective. Um, and then we can go to the next one here. And so we can start here with the first day. Essentially, the first day, what was planned in the schedule, we had a full schedule as well. So everything was quite, we had a full packed days. All 3 days of the competition were packed with competition, as well as essentially some, there's some events at the end. So there was all the competition during the daytime, and then they had some maybe evening events, basically, so that you could, really enjoy everyone's company and really get to meet everyone and know them better as we spend time here. And so we started off with the desert safari ride. The desert safari ride was meant to, as it was described, was to bring out the Mamluk in you. So as you would expect, this culture was in the Middle East. This also took place specifically in Al Quwain, which is one of the Emirates of the UAE. It is just northeast of Dubai, so it's outside the city. It's a little bit more of a rural area. As you guys can see, it's definitely more like desertous area. So being able to start off the day in the competition with a desert safari ride was quite amazing. Just being able to see everyone jump on a horse, and as we're going through these sand dunes, we're actually getting to see camels all throughout the trails, and so really getting to get a first-hand glance of everyone's riding experience, and then just being able to be submerged in that type of environment. So it was really awesome to see that. And then we'll go through also with the 18-meter target archery. That was the first event of the competition, and we have some pictures to go along with that. And then the ending event for this day was some Taraz grading. So as we mentioned, you're required to have a Taraz grading to participate in the competition. So what we were offered was basically, before we started any event, anyone that had not been previously graded, they would have the opportunity to get their first level of grading, whether so I have two of them labeled here. So there's Choban and there's Karanis. The Choban is the first level of ground archery. So they really focus on being a well-rounded archer for ground archery as well as horseback archery. So these are the two that we worked on. And essentially the very first thing that we did as we there, so we hadn't been there at all. This was our first time there. Actually, I'll share this as I'm speaking, but it was our first time there, so we hadn't been over to meet anyone in the academy. So this was our first opportunity to take our first Taraz grading exam. And so, and as y'all can see, this great picture. It was awesome to get like the whole group on horseback and being able to take photos and videos. So it really felt like we were almost a Mamluk warrior unit. It was a very special moment, I think, for everyone. And this was also kind of overseeing all of the area, so you had a nice landscape perspective from here. And so, as I mentioned, we did start. We had the target set up on the left hand side. What Mamluk Academy uses are a traditional target called the tabla target. It is this rounded blue target on the left-hand side that we see, and that is what you get graded on. There's definitely many aspects of the grading that take place. Score is one of those, but that's actually not the most important part. It's really about getting your technique correct, and then there's also some additional historical knowledge that is required. So, as I mentioned, it's really about getting your experience, gaining experience in technique as well as on and off the field. So what we started with was having our Taraz grading. Fortunately, Kristie and I both passed, so we got our
Thank goodness.
first level of brown Taraz. So we were able to get that. There was also, I believe, 2 or 3 others that had yet to take it, so they also passed. So then we were all able to, enter the games without, being left out. Essentially, we all passed. So then the images on the right, you can see here, Kristie's shooting. We had I don't recall how many ends we have, but essentially this is an
5
18
ends.
meter distance, and you shoot 5 arrows at this distance, and we've got 5 ends essentially. So you're shooting a total of 25 arrows. If anyone that has seen previously on our Instagram, on our social channels, we participate in some postal matches. It is essentially the same format
Mhm.
as those matches. If you have any questions of those, we can definitely answer towards the back end. But essentially, it's the same format. But we are shooting at 18 meters, and so, like I mentioned, it's 25 arrows, and then at the end, you tally up your score, and then see who ends up being on top. The last one here is just me walking up, collecting my arrows with Barish, which is that lead instructor that I mentioned from the Mamluk Turkey Academy.
Yusuf took these. I think Yusuf, one of the
Oh yes.
archers, had his camera, so he was out there taking like the really pretty pictures. Any of those pictures that you see was
Yes,
from
definitely.
Yusuf.
Lots of credit to Yusuf for taking amazing pictures, as you can see right here too.
Yeah, Yusuf also took this one, and this is actually a picture of Alperin. And if you know the Mamluk techniques, or you're studying the Mamluk techniques right now, especially on horseback, you can just see how like perfect his form is, with just how he's sitting in the saddle and his release. Um, so that's kind of just a treat for those who are studying the Mamluk techniques right now.
And we can also see he's got the 2 yellow Taraz
Yeah,
bands as well. So
on his
on both
on his
arms.
arms.
And then with day two, so day two was the beginning of the horseback archery. So we had the tabla 4 track, and then the second, and that essentially took place on the first part of the day. So the days would be split up. I should have mentioned the first day, but basically the days would be split up between two sections. The first half of the day, the reason for that also kind of went along with the culture in the Emirates, because normally it is very hot. It's a desertous area, so it's very hot. And actually, January is the coolest time and considered some of the best time to go. And what they are really accustomed to is essentially splitting up their day into 2 halves. So the first half would be we would start at 8 a.m. and then they would go until about 12 noon. And then from there, we would take a break until about 3:30 p.m. and then we'd come back and then participate in the second half of the competition. So here we can see that the first half was revolved around the tableau 4 track, and then the second half was on the 60-meter target archery. And so to give a little bit more information on what the Tableau 4 track is, essentially, it is, we mentioned earlier, Kristie was talking about how we practice on a 90-meter track. On horseback, you'll be practicing on a 90-meter track. There are longer tracks, but the standard minimum is a 90-meter track. And for Tableau 4 track, this is a great picture of the target that we were referring to earlier. It is a 60-meter tableau target. It is split up into 3 distinctive scoring sections. The exterior lighter blue color is 2 points. The gray section in the center is 4 points, and then the darker blue area in the center is 6 points. And for this track, it is spread across the 90-meter distance. You'll see here on the right-hand side, we have a diagram of how the targets are actually placed. The first one, as you can see here, is at about approximately 15 meters down the track with 10 meters distance far away, like separated from the track. And then moving on there, you have a target that's actually pointed diagonally towards the rider. So when you're riding across this one, you're actually needing to make a forward shot. And then the next one after that, you'll see it's angled towards the back end of the track, the right-hand side. And that shot, you have to actually make a back shot so that you are, it really challenges you to be able to do different shots from different angles. And then lastly here, the fourth target is also placed at a parallel angle, and it's 10 meters away from the track as well. So you're having a lot of dynamic shots throughout this 90-meter track. And along with that, you have all these factors that go along with it. As we go down kind of the summary on the left-hand side, each archer has a total of 2 warm-up rounds. So you can either choose to shoot on those, or you can just, get your horse prepared for that track. Some choose to trot, some choose to canter, and some even choose to shoot on the second warm up. So you have those 2 warm ups, and then you have 6 official runs. In those 6 official runs, your time limit is capped at 14 seconds. You can definitely run it quicker. And as you can see the next line here with the time bonus. However, if you do have a track run that lasts longer than 14 seconds, you are penalized. So going down here, you can see that there is a time bonus. There's a multiplier, 0.5 multiplier for 1 hit, a multiplier of 1 for 2 hits, and then a multiplier of 1.5 for 3 hits or more. And essentially, the more target, it incentivizes hitting more targets so that you can get more multiplication points for your final score. And then, as I mentioned, there's also a time penalty. So there's a 1.5 points per second penalty. I don't think many other riders that we saw had that issue. They were all quite fast.
Very fast.
But then the last few things here is riders may retrieve the arrows from the quiver one by one, and the first arrow may be knocked before the run. So essentially what that means is you can already have it knocked on your string as you begin your run. So you're already prepared and you're not having to pull from the quiver for the very first arrow. And then if all targets are hit, then you get a total of 4+ points at the very, tallied up at the end, depending on what you've scored on those 3 segments of the target that I mentioned earlier with the 2, 4, and 6.
And then to kind of see this in action, this is Barish. As you can tell, he is just flying down the track. But you can kind of see his horsemanship. You can see how balanced he is in the saddle. You can see how fast he's loading and how he is just shooting those arrows, as he's just zooming down the track. I want to say his time was maybe like between 8 seconds or 10 seconds.
Yeah, somewhere between. A lot of these riders were definitely in the 8-10 second realm. And so a lot of them were gaining a lot of points with, their time bonuses. And, we did mention this is a 60 centimeter target, which may seem quite large when you're shooting at it on ground. But when you actually place these on these stands, they become quite hard to hit. So just seeing these riders go that quickly and being able to still hit the target was pretty awesome to see. And on top of that, even though it was during the cooler time of, UAE weather, it still got quite hot because we have our Zevins on, we have the traditional clothing. And so, just being out in the sun all day really, changes the difficulty level. So, you've got arrows that may drop, your bows may get softer. So the power of your bow isn't quite what you would expect every single time.
And I will add, for the Tabla 4 track, if anybody wants to see that in person, there is a horseback archery for people who live in Austin and in Texas. There's a horseback archery competition starting this week in New Braunfels, and it's going to be hosted by Kristen and Tyler Aron at Titan Ranch. The competition is called Star, and we can send some links to that after this call for those interested in attending. But on the Saturday of that competition, there will be the Tabla 4 track. So it'll be a neat way for you guys to come and see what that looks like in person if you guys are located locally, or if you guys just want to fly to Texas, that we can, show you around too. Yeah, you can talk about 60 meter.
And so after that tabla track competition, we took our break. Everyone was able to go get lunch, rest for a little bit, get out of the sun for a little bit and get some water in. Then we came back for the 60 meter target archery. And so essentially, just as it implies, we're shooting at 2 different tabla targets here. So in order to make it a little bit more, essentially what these 2 targets are replicating is a traditional Turkish target, which is in Turkish language, it would be the puta target. And what it's y'all may have seen it before. It looks a little bit like an avocado shape, a brown avocado. But to replicate that, we use 2 tabla targets stacked, as you can see in the center picture. And the scoring would still be the same. So the 2, 4, 6 in the center. And we are all essentially at a line at 60 meters. And we're shooting the same amount of arrows. We're shooting 5 ends of 5 arrows for a total of 25. And at the end, we tally up our score. Here you can see on the right-hand side, Kristie was right on her last arrow, and she got a good hit at the very end of our her whole group that was shooting at the time.
I will add for the 60 meters at the beginning of the comp, or when we got invited out to the games, they were still figuring out if they wanted to do a 40 or 60. So I had been training for a 40-meter distance. And about 2 weeks before the competition, they gave us the finalized itinerary and said it would be changed to 60 meters. So I was just like, oh, okay. I'll just wing it. I'll do a couple 60-meter shots, and it is what it is. But this was a lot of fun to just go out there and shoot it, and ended up doing pretty well in this competition.
I think we may have received a schedule that said 60 meters, like I think a week and a half
Yeah, a
before
week and a half.
we took out.
So just know for international competitions that the itineraries are not always set, or for some reason changes need to be made. So just be, like that's a good thing to always just be aware of.
And something that actually was quite nice, a UAE local, Dr. Rashid Sultan, he is a doctorate of medicine and surgery, recent graduate as well. And then he also is an amateur boyer, string maker, and arrow maker. He is based out of, I believe he also lived in Kuwait. So he's a part of the UAE Academy in school. Hey, hello, welcome. Hi, Paran. The headmaster himself has now joined us. And so during the second day, on the back end of the day, while everyone was essentially resting before we were going into the second half of the day, actually the beginning of the second half, Dr. Rashid provided an informal presentation about bow and string making, as well as knowledge that is required for it. It was quite nice to really get a firsthand perspective of a boyer that's actively making horn bows. He makes composite bows. For those that may not be familiar with composite bows, they are made of three essential materials, the core piece being wood. Then the inside or the belly of the bow is horn. That can be of various animals. Cow horn is a really big one that I've seen. And then the exterior of the bow is essentially covered with sinew, which provides the additional support needed for these shorter bows to be able to bend as much and give that as much power as they do. So it was really great to have a presentation that, it was about an hour. He provided a lot of good, valuable knowledge of how he works on these bows. And let me see if I can play some of these. This one on the left is actually an Egyptian bow. And I believe it also would be considered an Assyrian bow. And it stops like that just because actually it pauses at the end, because this is essentially the form that has been seen on many artifacts of Assyrian archers, where they're pulling with their thumb, but they have kind of the three fingers below. So he was just giving us a demonstration there of what that bow looks like. And then here we have a veteran that was pulling it and really admiring his Rashid's craftsmanship. And then this last one here, we've got it being placed basically in action. So this last one on the right is a Seljuk bow, and I believe this one was a 20-pound bow, right? This was a lighter one, which was also very interesting to hear about, because when we hear about a horn bow, we traditionally think of those as being very heavy bows, anywhere from 60 pounds and above. But he's been experimenting to where he can get that bow weight, the bow poundage, in various weights, and not necessarily always having such a heavy bow. He also let us know a lot of knowledge that went along with bow making, in terms of how long they take, and just it was really great to just have historical knowledge provided along with the competition, rather than just competition nonstop. And then I can hand you day 3.
Yeah, so for day 3 was the final day of the competition, and it was we entered in flight archery and then the kabak 6 track. So for flight archery, the stables that was that the Mamluk Games was hosted at, called Cobber Stables. They actually have some space behind the stables that we traveled by car to get to, which was a really fun experience to get there because that was my first time in the desert, like driving in the desert. So it was really fun to experience that. But basically, what we did is we took the flight arrows that Dieter built, which worked out great for us. And then we used techniques that would allow us to use all the potential power of the bow to get the arrow as far as we could. And so on the left-hand picture was where we shot from, and then we pretty much shot into that valley right there that you see on the left-hand picture. And then on the very right-hand video, this are the specific techniques in order that we use in order to participate in flight archery. And then afterwards, we went and scored the distance. Sorry, not scored, but measured the distance of each of our arrows. So we had to make sure that we were shooting, you know, straight into this area that we had defined in, so we could find our arrows and measure the distance of them. So with Dieter's flight arrows, I think we got about 10 more meters than what we would have if we used regular arrows. So that was to our advantage because we knew we were only going to bring that one bow each. And so we were just trying to figure out how can we make arrows in order to make them even lighter, knowing that our bow poundage wasn't at that 50-pound max weight limit.
And for this one, we also only shot 5 arrows in total.
5 arrows, yeah.
As you would expect, you wouldn't want to go retrieve 25 arrows each. So that's what we only, it was much better to shoot those 5. And here's some pictures of essentially all of us going to collect our arrows. We all went as a group. And then this one on the right was actually my farthest arrow, which I got to 198 meters with this one.
Yeah. And then the Kabak 6-track, here's an illustration of what that Kabak 6-track is. So as Dieter mentioned with the other track, the Tabla 4-track, archers still had that time limit of 14 seconds, and then they would get time bonuses or time penalties if they went in that threshold that he mentioned earlier. So this is a pretty challenging, I know from my perspective, because I'm I'm more of a beginner archer, but you've got one target that's on the ground, and then you've got a kabak. Right after that, you have a kabak target that you need to hit. And we'll show you pictures of this in a sec of what that form looks like in order to hit the kabak. And then you've got another, I believe this is 30-centimeter target on the ground, right? 30 centimeter on the trap.
They're called, I'm probably going to butcher the name a little bit, but they're called kikak targets, and they're 30-centimeter, the same scoring rings as well.
So it's even smaller than the 60-meter target, tabla targets that we were using for a lot of the target archery. So this is a couple of pictures of Maimuna and Mahmoud. Maimuna is shooting the kikak target. So you can see that her body is just like completely turned in order to shoot that target on the ground. And then Mahmoud, he is shooting the kabak target, which the target is in the, it's
8 meters in the air.
8 meters in the air. And so there's a couple different ways to shoot a kabak target. But as you can see here, this is what Mahmoud just kind of in action shooting that kabak target. So you can just see for people who might be aware of horseback archery or who have or more beginner, this is kind of takes a lot of that core strength in order to hit that target as your horse is kind of going out of canter as well. So awards, the fun part. So the way that score was calculated was the overall score was calculated for the Mamluk Games was they would take all of your scores of all the disciplines in target archery and horseback archery and calculate them all together in order to get the top 3 for overall. In addition to this, there were awards given for the top 3 for each individual discipline. So for me, because and especially for Dieter as well, because we practice so much ground archery, I was able to place second in the 18 meter. And then I was able to also place first in the 60 meter, which was surprising for me because I had been practicing at that 40 meter distance. And then it wasn't until a couple weeks when the schedule was finalized. I looked at the schedule and it was actually 60 meters. So I was, just happy to have the opportunity to get in there and, apply what I had been training for and be successful at this more 60 meter distance.
This one was an interesting one. As Alperen had mentioned, that this was actually a tie for first and second, and then there was also a tie for third and fourth. Definitely, Ben, you can see here is on the left-hand side. He scored more on a certain end than me, so he was able to take the fourth place. But it was definitely awesome to see, it was a great competition in general, just being able to have such a close scoring at the end.
Yeah, I think I got jihad by one hit that was in the 6-point ring. So it was a really fun competition to be out there. And then the overall winners was Mahmoud. He did really great in all 3 disciplines. And then Badish, who got third, and then Jihad, who got second overall. So these are guys who have been practicing Mamluk techniques for years and years and years. And it just shows how, well disciplined they are, not just ground or target archery and horseback. They're well-rounded archers in all of these disciplines.
Y'all can see they each have, I think even Badish has more than 1 medal. So
yeah, they really all have a lot of medals.
their skills across the board.
And Alperen, I mean, you did really well in the whole competition as well. And so Alperen also participated in the Mamluk Games. And the reason why he participated was he wanted us to have this baseline of this is the scores that you should kind of have and kind of use him as a, I guess, guide in these competitions. And these are kind of the scores you want to work towards. And then this is just everybody at the end after the award ceremony who all got medals. And I think even if you got a medal or you didn't get a medal, it was just about celebrating and practicing and showcasing the Mamluk techniques and being together around people who are like-minded and just having a good time in a new country. For us, it was a new country. We've never been to the UAE, so it was a really fun time just to be around everybody and just to meet everybody as well too from Mamluk Academy.
As y'all can see, it's kind of difficult to have a picture where everyone
yeah. But yeah, we'll leave some question or leave some time for some questions. I think I have the host controls. I have you guys as I'm gonna turn this on to you guys are more than welcome to just turn on your microphone and ask some questions if you'd like as well. But we really appreciate you guys coming by and taking time out of your evening, your morning, your day, whatever time it is for you, and joining us and learning about the Mamluk Games. I'll open it up to Alperen if you would like to say anything about the Mamluk Games.
Hello, everybody. It's Alperen Alkan. I am the headmaster of Mamluk Academy. First of all, sorry I couldn't join early because I couldn't understand the time differences. So I tried to come a little bit early, but I saw that it's late.
No worries.
Sorry. First of all, thank you so much to Kristie and Dieter because it's very important for us. Maybe I can explain a little bit what we are doing as Mamluk Academy. Because for Mamluk Academy, we try to carry on the tradition, directly the Mamluk tradition and Mamluk history. Because for us, archery is not only a sport, it's also a culture, it's also a history. So we have to understand everything together if you want to do this. And in this Mamluk Games, it was the first time a common organization with the different disciplines in the world. Because for us, only ground archery or only horseback archery or only flight archery is not enough. Because in history, you have to do everything together. If you want to be a Mamluk, you have to do everything together. And we try to do this. And it was so funny. It was very enjoyable in the Mamluk Games. And I hope that we will do it every year in the different countries. And I hope lots of people from USA, especially from the Texas Asiatic Archery, you can join to our competitions and you can join to our family. Thank you so much for this organization, Kristie and Dieter. And I hope that we can meet as soon as possible, face to face, and we can shoot together. I'm waiting you in Turkey. I hope you can come.
Yes.
To all of you. Okay, thanks. Kristie, you can continue.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for attending. No worries about being a little bit delayed. I know it's always, I'm always having to check. And then we recently had the daylight savings time, so that also probably changed.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I guess, did we have any questions that were dropped in the chat maybe? We have a few more minutes. We kind of try to make it within the 8:30 time. So definitely open it up to floor if anybody has any questions while we were on. Yeah.
Yeah. And if not, that's okay as well. We can, after this, since this recording this webinar is recorded, we'll send you guys a link to this as well. And then some links and resources to Mamluk Academy, Mamluk Archery, and also our website too, Texas Asiatic Archery, for those that are local to the Austin area and Texas area. Even if you want to come practice with us, you're more than welcome to just kind of, hit us up on social media or wherever you kind of see us out in the internet. And that's not only specific just to Austin locals as well. It's if you're in Texas and you decide to come down to Austin, you want to shoot, just let us know and we can meet up. And that's also true for anybody outside of Texas as well. If you guys visit Texas and y'all want to shoot, more than welcome to join us. And so, Johnny, how would you prepare differently now that you've gotten, well, that's a good question. How would you prepare differently now that you've gotten the first one out of the way? For me personally, I'm making it a goal to practice more in horseback archery for this year because we have trained so much in ground archery and shot in so many competitions in target ground archery. I am prioritizing horseback archery for like the next year and being able to, one, be comfortable. I'll back up. Horsemanship, I think, is a big thing in horseback archery, being able to ride different horses and apply that horsemanship to the horses that you might not be familiar or comfortable with is a really big goal for me. During the games, I was really tested on my horsemanship. And again, because I'm a beginner, I don't have everything figured out just right now. And so that was a big learning curve or learning thing for me coming out of the games is, we came back to Texas and I was like, okay, I want to do this, this, and this for the whole year. And really being able to be comfortable riding different horses, being able to ride in different saddles as well. We're used to riding in Western saddles here, which provide a little bit more support, making it a goal for myself to also ride more English saddles, which for me personally, because we're in Western, going to English, it has a little less support than a Western saddle does. But
yeah, similar to me. We've definitely, we'll continue to practice as much as we are on ground because, in order to, if you want to fix anything, you should definitely fix it on ground before you get on and start riding and putting this together. So I would say my goals are the same of just getting a lot of saddle time in and really, I think at this point, I'm even up to riding about 10 different horses. So really getting an understanding for different horses' rhythms, different horses' personalities, and then different ways of, communicating with the horse. I felt like we were speaking a little bit different language. So that was a little bit of learning that we had to do while we were there. And then one thing that comes along with horseback archery is when you are competing internationally, and I mean even regionally sometimes, you'll go through a horse lottery. So you don't necessarily always have the ability to choose your horse that you like. I know Alperen has definitely great stories about that, where you basically end up with a horse that you may not ideally want to ride, but you still have to make do with that. So really getting to really perfect, like working at our horsemanship so that we can just be able to be ready for the unexpected.
Yeah. The next question, what was the biggest shock for you as an archer going from training practice to executing in a competition? For me, going from practice to competition, I felt pretty confident going from practice to competition. I think for me, there's always that like time when you have those jitters, but then because I have practiced and competed so much in ground, I've been able to practice in local competitions to kind of get over that fear or that target panic. And so competing internationally, I use the same kind of like, method when I do get kind of like nervous. I'll just kind of start to breathe a little bit, or sometimes and this is especially true in the Mamluk techniques, I'll kind of like slow down the shot process and check my arrow and just kind of get in this meditative state when I do feel anxious. But I think going from practice to a competition setting where things might be like quote unquote like intense, I feel pretty prepared in those situations. What I wasn't prepared for and what I learned is I shot the Grozer Turkish short, which is a biocomposite and is made of natural materials. And because we were going to a region that is known to be more hot than Texas, I was having bow performance issues. Like some of the times my bow was a little bit more springy than I was used to. And I was like, what's going on? I had no idea what was going on. I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe it might be the heat. So that's one thing to be aware of when you guys like decide to compete internationally or like looking at international competitions, that weather can play a factor into your performance, and to make sure that you've got the right equipment. And then if you have time to maybe test it in different climates, I think that just comes with time and experience as well.
I would say probably shock. I don't know about too much shock. I think really I was just excited to get to meet everyone. We did have like an opening dinner with everyone that participated, so it was really great to get to meet them. And I think that took a lot of the pressure off, to where I got to meet everyone. I got to have dinner with them and really get to know them a little bit more. So I wasn't, I only know a lot of these instructors from, social media or something. So you may feel kind of a little bit like intimidated, right? They've all been doing this for a long time. So really getting to meet them and speak to them personally made a bigger difference and calmed me down to where, okay, I'm just here as like part of the family, essentially. So I think mostly it was the longer days. I think that was probably the biggest thing, where I'm not accustomed to doing, 3-day competitions, and, just doing intensive archery for those 3 days was, I think, one of the bigger, I would say, not necessarily shock, but a different aspect that I wasn't quite ready for.
Yeah, I agree about just kind of hanging out and going and meeting everybody from the Mamluk Academy was awesome. And then Ashley, I think that's Claire. Yeah. Okay. Claire. Hey, Claire. Because of the historical aspect of both Mamluk and Asiatic archery, are any specific breeds of horses preferred for this sport in Turkey, or is that something that is too broad to control?
If you want, I can answer it.
Yes.
Normally in Turkey, we are using Turkish Arabian horses. Our Arabian horses are bigger than pure Arabian horses because it's the mix with our Asian and Arab horses together. We are using it because they have also some differences between these Arabian horses and also European horses, these big and cold-blood horses. Because I don't know, how can I say, we have lots of bones on the back. Kristie, can you tell me what's the name in English?
Like vertebrae and spine.
Okay, yeah. And Arabian horses, they have one less. Because of that, they can move more easily to everywhere. They can turn so easily. Because of that, in the history, there are the best warrior horses. But for horseback archery, for me, the breeds is not important. The important thing is the talent of the horse, because it's like a human. Every human can shoot, but some of them, they have talents for archery, and some of them they don't have. So same things also for horses. So when you use a horse for horseback archery, you need to understand they have talent or no. Otherwise, it's not important. You can use all breeds.
Awesome, thank you. Then the next question, I think that's all of them. Everybody, and yeah, feel free to hop off if you need to. It's past 8:30 as well, if anybody needs to go as well. But I think that's all of the questions. I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for attending our webinar and learning about the Mamluk Games. And yeah, we'll keep you guys, I mean, just keep an eye out on our social media as well, and then like Mamluk Academy as well. And if you guys are interested in shooting some of the postal matches that we've been doing, again, you guys are more than welcome to join us when we meet up and shoot these as well. So awesome. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good night, a good morning, a good day, whatever time zone you're in. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Thank you all for attending. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.